Hello, can I have your age?
Yeah, I'm 41. Did you hear me?
Sorry.
Oh, I said
Yeah, I heard
I'm
you.
41.
Okay, okay. And do you disagree or agree with my prompt?
Um, well, I think that this just comes down to how we define what gay is. So, for instance, would you say adultery is a choice?
Yeah, I would consider that a choice
But
specifically.
but what if you're really attracted to the woman?
The action is different than the attraction. Would you
Exactly.
agree with me there?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
so I think that what
wait, I,
so hang on, let
sorry,
me make
wait,
my case.
wait.
I think that what you're doing is you're making something that's trivially true by just saying if you're attracted to X, that makes you the thing. I don't believe that that's the case. I think it's defined by the action.
Okay, okay.
And so by
Okay.
that logic, you just admitted that homosexuality is a choice.
The attraction is, I think it's the attraction specifically. If you want to label it like an action of that like level, I would agree with you that it is the action of homosexuality.
Yeah, but you just made,
Like,
but what you're doing is you're just defining something as being trivially true by saying attraction equals the thing, but I don't define it that way. To define homosexuality as an action, a thing which you do. So even if it was a case that you were attracted to men but never acted on it, how would anybody ever even know you were gay?
simply by the attraction, and
Yeah, see
I
what I
never
mean?
attributed,
Like, it's just
I never
trivially
attributed,
true.
wait, I
Go
never
ahead.
attributed the, sorry, I never attributed the attraction to like the action specifically, and the act or what homosexuality is. Someone can be homosexual specifically, but they can also not ever do a homosexual act. Would you agree with that?
Well, no. So I don't agree that attraction is the definition of the thing. I think that that's a thing that progressives do in order to create something which is unfalsifiable. Like, I can never tell you what it is that you're attracted to. It would be impossible for me to do that. It would only be, but I could objectively note what your actions do. So, for instance, there could be many men who make the claim that they're attracted to men who actually aren't. We could never falsify that, could we?
I know, but
Hang
that
on, hang on.
I feel
Answer
like
my
this is
question
like
first. We couldn't actually falsify that, right?
awesome.
So like
Yes and no.
if
Well,
they so
the
like if
same
12
thing,
men
the
said
same
that
way.
they're all attracted to men, so therefore they were homosexuals, schmexuals, sorry, homoschmexuals. But there would be no way for us to actually determine that. That we would just have to take them at their word they were attracted to those men. But if they actually engaged in homosexual acts with men, that's an objective standard that we could actually determine, isn't it? So you could actually lie about attraction. There's no reason for us to believe you at all unless you're engaged in the act. And so I think definitionally it's the act that defines it, and that's a choice, just like adultery is a choice by your own admission.
I know, but I personally don't agree, and I can explain why. Specifically, because man that we, I guess, colloquially understand is like straight specifically, we can understand that he might still be straight, but he's never had like intercourse with a woman before. So like
So
I'm just simply saying that you can have like yeah, it can be sometimes I guess you can look at it in a way like, oh, it's not falsifiable, but I guess we're gonna have to take that into consideration. You can take that in consideration, but it's
yeah, but
ultimately
you
you
have
can
a
only just go
problem.
by the action.
Yeah, so like you have a problem here. So you would say for I would say for instance that hetero men and things like this, they might engage in self-sexual activity, gratifying activity based around heterosexual imagery and things like this, right? I would consider that to be a notation of what is heterosexual. Yeah, easy to not falsify. Homosexuality or sexuality, you would define the same way, right? Now we have an action that we can point to. Otherwise, you're just pointing to like asexual people, which means nothing. Ultimately, it's going to be the action that funds the thing because otherwise people could just be lying. You could never falsify it, right?
To be lying, just be false. Well, I mean, yeah, technically they could be lying, but I can
Yeah.
take it like a couple. I can take a couple deviations, like higher specifically, and I
But
could
that's why I'm
say
saying that that can't be
that
the criteria. The criteria can't be you're only gay because you say you are. That would be it would be defined in action itself. That would be how most people would at least colloquially look at it. And I think that what you're doing is you're just saying I define it this way because then I can say it's not a choice because I can't choose who I'm attracted to. But anybody can say that and just be lying, right? So, but
well,
we can
yeah,
always tell
but
through
obviously
action on the other hand, can't we?
I mean, I guess if we can take like, it's not like, of course, this isn't like very like using, not going to use it as like a pejorative or something like that. You can look at like prison specifically. Men will do that or do certain things towards other men. I don't think every man that does that sort of action towards like other men, that makes them inherently
Well, if they're
homosexual.
compelled, hang on, if they're compelled via force, that's different. If they're engaging in it willfully, then yeah, we would consider
I
them to
mean, the
be
men doing that
homosexuals,
action
right?
specifically. Yeah, yeah, but I'm talking about the men doing the forcing specifically. Like, not every
Yeah,
man
I
that's
would
not in the
consider
force
them
would
to
be
be
homosexual.
homosexuals, and so would everybody else. If you are forcibly doing that action to other men, I would consider you a homosexual for sure, like 1000%. Like you realize that there's equipment that needs to work and operate in those situations, right?
Well, I think it's more of like I think sorry. I think it's generally going to be the because when it comes to I don't know if you're you're probably are well versed but it's when we look at rape specifically um it's usually like seen as like a crime of like power specifically, and it's not
Yeah, I
really
don't believe
the
that either. I don't believe that. I think that
no.
no, I think that there's a lot of time. I think that that's a stupid feminist talking point. I bet you I can convince you on that real quick, right?
I mean,
Do you
and also
really?
can I
Hang
say
on.
one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I know you are. Nice to meet you, actually.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having
I've
me
seen
up.
you. Don't worry about it.
We've had a respectful debate so far, I think, right?
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the feminist thing. Let's just point out the feminist thing. Feminist talking point that rape's always about power. That actually isn't true, and I think I could demonstrate it to you pretty easily. You don't think that there's ever been a dude and a chick who've been really drunk and she's passed out and he's just taken advantage of her because he was really horny?
I mean, yeah, I would agree with
Yeah,
those
of course.
instances. Yeah,
So then it can't
absolutely.
always be about power. That's not about power. That's about that guy getting
Oh,
his
yeah,
rocks off,
I would
bro.
obviously agree with you. I would obviously agree with you in that certain thing,
Yeah,
obviously.
but do you see
But when
what I
it,
mean by like it power? It's not always about power, and I've
well,
always
yeah, I would agree with
rejected
you.
that. Yeah,
Would you agree that sometimes it is?
I think sometimes it is, but I think in order for the equipment and
Okay.
function to work, there has to be some level of you wanting to do that, right?
Well, yeah,
Like a
and it would be
like
the
some kind of biological thing that makes you want to engage in that, because otherwise the equipment can't work, right?
well, yeah, and I feel like I guess the biological equipment would be functioning in a way that it would be getting off to the idea of taking advantage of that certain person. Would you agree with only sometimes, of course, because
I think
obviously
that can
the
be
instance
part.
you
I
gave
think
me.
that that can be part of it, but I think if you're in prison and you're like doing this act to other men by force, that you probably are a homosexual. Yeah, I think that that's. I think that you want to do that for sexual gratification, not just for power.
I mean, I'd probably, in most cases, I might agree with you. There
Yeah.
might be like a couple niche cases,
Yeah.
but
See
it
what I
might
mean?
show.
So look at
Mhm.
that. We can find some common ground here. So this is what I'm saying
Okay.
though. When it comes to a choice, I think that you just kind of making this definitionally true because you just believe, hey, it's just based around attraction. The problem is like right now you have tons of people, for instance, who identify as being T, right? And say, oh, I'm non
Hmm.
binary, but they just live normal heterosexual lives and this type of thing because it's trendy. So are they lying? Yeah, probably. Same thing with lots of people who will identify as being LGBTQ in some regard, but just live normal heterosexual lives. Very clear that they're not in any way homosexuals. But because you
Well,
can define it based around attraction, anybody can call themselves that. And I think that that's a really terrible way to categorize these things.
I could say that attraction could be built around the biological function of like how, get the rocks off or whatever, how you like to say that specifically, is that they are attracted to different, like the different sexes, I suppose, specifically, is that their biological makeup seems to be where they are attracted to the two different sexes, I suppose.
Yeah, but they don't have to act on it, right? Just
Well,
like you don't
obviously
have to
not. And
act to be.
I absolutely agree with you there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so if
they
you
don't
don't,
act on
yeah,
it.
so if you don't have to act on it, then you could be a person who was actually attracted to men your whole life, never slept with another man. I don't think people would categorize you as a homosexual.
I mean, mo I mean, at least how society is. Obviously, I'm appealing to society, I suppose, or the majority, but it's most society. If you tell people that you're attracted to men and haven't slept with anybody in your entire life, they probably believe you to a certain extent. When you agree,
Wait, say that again. Let me make sure I got it right.
if So if you, I guess, parade around that you like men, I suppose, or something like that,
Hmm.
and you never slept with men specifically, or haven't slept with
Hmm.
anybody, in fact, like it's they would probably still take your word, like
I think that they, well,
society
I
based.
think a lot of people would, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. You're making my point for me about an unfalsifiable claim, right?
Well, yeah, but also you brought up like specifically when it comes to, I agree to a certain extent when it comes to like the non-binary and like
Yeah,
transgender
it's the same.
individuals.
It's the same
I think
type of thing. But let me grant your argument for a second. Let me grant
okay.
that you actually can't help who you're attracted to, and then that would identify you as being a hetero or homosexual in this case, right? Because you can't help it. Do you agree with me that there are, especially in early childhood development, psychological phenomenon which can happen to various groups of people, which can impact the outcomes of their sexuality?
I mean, I've looked at research, specifically when it comes to, because I feel like most people like to bring up like SA specifically in their childhood
That's
or
only, hang on,
early.
that's only one. There's also, like, let me give you an example of some of the strongest evidence for this. So you can take twin studies, for instance, right? Twin studies are really good because you're essentially taking genetic clones of each other, right?
Mhm.
That's what you're doing. And if you have one twin who's raised in an environment which is very, very open to LGBTQ, including LGBTQ parents, another twin who's not, the likelihood that one twin who's with LGBTQ parents comes out as being as homosexual is much higher than the other. And almost every single time that that experiment is rerun, that's the same result. And by the way, even in the general population, it's true that if you're raised by LGBTQ parents, your chances of becoming LGBTQ yourself drastically increase. Isn't that strange? Don't you think that that's really odd?
Well, and I know you're probably gonna say it's bullshit or something, but there's also the probability that generally these types of parents are more accepting specifically. I'll look into the studies because I've heard someone bring up twin studies before, but I haven't like ever looked at them specifically.
Yeah, but not only that, the idea here, for the oppositional argument generally is no, no, no. Those people were always homosexuals. It's just that they were in an environment where they couldn't come out. Well, that's really strange because then most of those people would default to heterosexual lifestyles, which is that's what's odd about it to me, right? It's like why are all these other people defaulting to a heterosexual lifestyle, and the statistical chances drastically increase when you have LGBTQ parents. That's really strange.
And again, you're gonna keep saying bullshit or something.
Same thing with like transgenderism, for instance. If it's the case that you have very pro LGBTQ trans parents, the chances that you're going to be trans greatly increase. Very strange, isn't
Hmm.
it?
I'm gonna I'm gonna keep saying it, but again, I'm going to keep saying it specifically. I suppose it could be possible that these types of parents specifically are going to be more accepting, and that's going to increase the likelihood of them coming out specifically. Because
Well,
again, when it comes to the coming out of it,
hmm, yeah, I
it's
understand the argument. The argument
okay.
is that if you have more accepting parents, the likelihood that the kid's going to come out as being the thing because they had a natural inclination to be the thing, all right, is much higher. That's what your basic argument is, right? Like if
Mm,
mommy and daddy both were way more accepting, then you would be way more likely to come out as the thing.
yeah, probably, yeah.
The problem is that then why is it in the general population without that you don't see more of that, and they go on to live heterosexual lifestyles? That seems to me that sexuality is much more fluid than you're giving it credit for.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna look at. Do you have like a specific twin study I can look at? Obviously,
Uh,
I don't want to like dissect or anything on here while you're here. I just want to look at one.
yeah, hang on a second.
Okay.
One second here. I wasn't
All right.
obviously expecting to have to pull this up, so I'm going back through my notes here.
No worries. You're good.
Yeah, so this was you can look at the Morrison Cameron study. There's multiple sources. By the way, has been a meta-analysis done on this study. It's highly
Okay.
contested, but it does seem that there is some outcomes here that do show that there's a higher propensity. And that's not the only series of studies on this, by the way. There's other ones that we can point to as well. But like, for instance, we can even look at the social norms right now of why it is that you have so many Gen Zers who will identify as being LGBTQ.
I think it would probably be a combination of, usually could be because we don't, at least on like a consensus basis, we don't generally know what are all the environmental factors specifically when it comes to
Environmental factors. That would lead to choice. That would lead to something else besides just inbuilt, wouldn't it? It would
Well, yeah,
perceive that there's a possibility that your sexuality can be influenced, wouldn't it?
I listen, but when I say environmental factors specifically, I'm referring to, I'm sure you've heard of this before. There's like the predisposition where it's like 8 to 16% genetics, and then there's also the hormone washing within the womb.
Sure.
When it comes to like other environmental factors, I mean, a lot of people do bring up the SA when it happens in childhood specifically. And you brought up the when they're raised in, LGBTQ households or something like
So
that.
when we
So
factor
that is
in
possible.
environmental factors, it doesn't seem like it's nearly quite so ingrained or inborn as you would have us believe.
I mean, if you don't have the predisposition, I mean, you do not have the possibility of being homosexual specifically. Would
Yeah,
you agree
but
with
do
that?
you see what I mean by predisposition? So let's assume for a second that you're predisposed to being an alcoholic. You ever going to be an alcoholic if you don't drink?
No, probably not.
No, right? So that would be an environmental factor, right? So you ever going to be LGBTQ if the environmental factors show that you never engage with the same sex? Chances probably not.
Well, don't. And of course, you just brought up the specific, not
Uh
that,
huh.
but you did bring up that the attraction, I suppose, we can never like 100% verify whether this person
Right.
is
That's why
homosexual
we would
unless they
use.
in
That's
the
why we would
act.
use the action. You see.
I mean, that's probably it probably is a better model, possibly a better model to identify certain individuals like that. I would probably agree,
Well, that's
but
all. That's
it's
all I ask is that when you say being gay is not a choice, that obviously there's way more nuance there than you're giving it credit for.
okay.
So I appreciate the conversation. You were a very good host, and you didn't mute me even once. And for that, I very much thank you.
No worries. Thank you for coming up and
Yeah.
nice meeting you.
You too. You have a good day.
You too. Nice meeting
Yeah.
you.
What the fuck? You too. You have a good day.
You too.
Did we just have a good faith engagement?
This box
Did we
died
just
in
have
the
a
mail,
good faith
Matt. They
engagement?
send us blue